Do you think that the major spurt of gains for the RMB are now going to take a breather?
I mean, look, so Chinese reopening has really boosted optimism in Chinese equity markets. We've seen equity inflows coming through very strongly in the last 1 or 2 months. In fact, January is probably showing the strongest amount of inflows coming through to China via the equity channel. But I think it's by and large done and dusted. So if you look at what reopening entails, that implies that Chinese outbound tourists are going to resume. So that's going to be a natural outflows coming through on the services balance. It's going to weigh on the current account front. That's going to create a natural break against further RMB gains. So we think the RMB is not going anywhere fast from here. And not forgetting that there is still a negative rate differential between Chinese rates and US rates. So we don't see a case for exuberant bond inflows coming back to China. On the equity front, much of the flows have been strong. It's probably justified, but we don't see the momentum sustaining too strongly going forward. So RMB will perhaps be trading around the 6.7 to 6.8 range. We could still see some scope for modest gains on reopening, but I think the larger part of gains are probably done from here.
Okay, so it sounds like some range-bound sideways trading for the RMB for a little while. What about the Indian rupee, given the upcoming 2023 budget?
So I think the budget will be closely watched by investors for 2 reasons. The first reason is there's an expectation that the government will focus more on reinforcing macro stability. We know that global rates have moved up quite significantly. What that means is that global financial conditions have tightened, and inflation in India is still a source of concern. Although headline inflation has eased a bit into the 2 to 6% RBI target range, if you look at the core inflation metric, it still feels as though inflation pressures are persistent. So investors are not hoping to see a case where the budget could perhaps be stoking inflation pressures. So rather, a path towards fiscal consolidation with a focus on macro stability. That would be very helpful for the rupee. But at the same time, the rupee is not likely to see very sharp gains either, because firstly, the RBI will be looking to build up its FX reserves. Second reason is, of course, the current account deficit is still very large. Based on that, we think RBI is perhaps not too comfortable with the rupee gaining too much strength in the short term. So we think dollar INR will likely be consolidating around the 80 to 83 level going forward.